All right, good morning, Year 10, and welcome to the Friday Takeaway, Episode 2 for Week 2 of Term 2. Okay, so we've had our first full week of our online experience this week with a little, if any, tech problems. So this is what we should have got out of the week, all right? We've identified the fact from our work last week that Nero is a controversial figure, okay? And we can already, you've probably made a judgment about him, okay? And that the image that we have of him, though, has been shaped by the available evidence that we have of him, okay? So that's our ancient sources, our primary sources and secondary sources, our Suetonius, Tacitus, Cassius Dio, Josephus, and a whole range of other writers, okay? What we've done this week is we've focused particularly on the quality of the available evidence on Nero's reign. So how useful and how reliable is that evidence that we have about him? All right. And that's important to consider because that reliability obviously then influences our ability to make more accurate or more what we might consider to be correct judgments of Nero. Now, we also talked about the perspective of an author, and remember that the perspective is where the author is looking at the issue from. So their gender, their social status, their life experience, their level of education, and all of those sorts of things, all right? And the perspective of the author will shape their point of view or their opinion of Nero. So in the earlier work we did with Tacitus, we know that Tacitus was a wealthy aristocrat who was had a successful political career. So that is his perspective of Nero's reign. But his point of view was that he lost a lot of opportunities because of the imperial system, because people like Nero were in power, or Domitian, in Tacitus's case, was in power, that affected his ability to function within the political sphere. So that's his opinion or his point of view, okay? That's also a good example of the way in which the context of their writing also shapes their point of view. Because Tacitus ruled, or Tacitus lived under the reign of the Emperor Domitian, who didn't have a very good relationship with people of Tacitus's social class, that experience shapes Tacitus's opinion of the emperorship. Okay? All right. Really important point here, then the takeaway for one of the key takeaways for the week. All evidence that we use is biased. It's biased in some way, okay? We have to recognise that and take that into consideration when we're using it. It doesn't mean that we exclude it, it's biased, I can't use it. We can use it, but we have to acknowledge that there may be issues with its reliability, which can affect its usefulness to us. So if it is a really biased piece of propaganda, for example, about a leader, we need to look for corroborating evidence or other evidence that can either support and develop and support that idea or that point of view, or to refute it, okay? And that's one of the key skills of being an historian. All right, so just a couple of quick admin things before we get to Word of the Week. Our check-ins, remember, they are happening Wednesday and Friday, okay? Now, I had to email quite a few people this week because I didn't have any evidence of you having engaged with what we'd done. All I'm looking for there is that you've seen the work. You may or may not have commenced it, okay? That can just be the fact that you've acknowledged our welcome or my welcome post in the Teams chat on Monday morning, so that I know you've read that, you've read what work's available there, and you're going to get to it. I know that some of you are planning your week in different ways and doing work on different days and things like that, but we've been directed that we check Wednesday and we check Friday, okay? For the Friday check-in, I'm looking to see that you've either completed or nearly completed the set work, all right? And that's based on my knowledge of of your situation in that week. So if you've called in ill where you've had 2 days off, obviously I'm taking that into consideration. You're not getting things finished, okay? But again, if we don't know what's going on, we can't make adjustments like that. All right. So on Wednesday and Friday, if you're not hitting those benchmarks, we'll send an email through to yourself and to mum and dad. Okay. That ties into then with when you're doing the work, make sure you're doing it where I send it to you in the class notes section so that I can easily check it and so you can show me that you're doing the work and you can impress me with the quality of the work that you're doing. All right, just looking ahead, so we're talking week 5 and 6 here, so that is just forever away, but just be aware that that's on the horizon. Our work next week is we're going to be looking at how Nero came to power, and we're focusing on the skill of communicating our comprehension of historical sources. That's going to be the first question that we're going to do in that week 5 assessment, okay? So please be aware of that everyone in week 5 will be doing it on Tuesday, the 19th of May. That'll be distributed to you at some time in the morning, and you'll have to submit that by a set time on that day, okay? The second part's in week 6. Now, that's our first week. Well, theoretically, that could be our first week back at school. We don't know how that's working at the moment. But if you're at home, if we're still in our online environment, we'll follow the same rules in week 6 that we do in week 5. Okay, so stay tuned for week 6. But week 5, part A, will be happening on Tuesday, the 19th of May. All right. Both of those, the tasks need to be completed on the set date. They're not an assignment or anything like that. They've just got to be done and submitted on that day. All right, word of the week. This week, the word of the week is hypocaust. So this was something that we see emerging. The earliest versions of it is about 350 BC, and it was a heating system that the Romans used to heat their buildings. So the image that we've got to the left there shows we can see the floor, and the floor is raised up on some pylons. Okay, and basically what would happen is that the Romans would push warm air from fires, and they'd light a fire and then push that warm air in underneath the floor in amongst those the columns, and then that heat would heat up the flooring above it, and it'd be a nice warm house or warm building, or in this case a warm temple, to cope with those cold European winters. Okay, so it's the earliest form of central heating. So you might have central heating or central air conditioning, probably in Queensland here. The Romans were doing something like that 2,500 years ago or thereabouts. Okay, so the first person to email me the word of the week, which is hypocaust, in the subject line, will win. Okay, so thanks a lot for a good week too. Enjoyed the long weekend, and we will see you next week. Thank you.